Let me tell you something I've never told anyone outside my own people. I was there the night the humans came, not in the stories, not in the recordings everyone passes around now like it's some kind of legend. I mean, I was there. I heard the signal go out with my own ears. I watched the sky go dark before it caught fire. And I'm going to tell it to you the way it actually happened, not the polished version, the real one, with all the parts where I was so afraid I couldn't move. So sit with me a while. My name is Vale. Back then I was a junior relay technician on a rock called Tessom Drift. If you've never heard of it, don't feel bad. Nobody had. It was a mining outpost on the very edge of conquered space, the kind of place they send you when you fail your placement exams, but they still need a body to flip switches. Tessom Drift wasn't a planet, not really. It was a hollowed-out moon, gray and cold, spinning slow around a gas giant the color of old bruises. We dug radium out of the deep tunnels. We loaded it onto haulers. We sent it away. That was the whole of life there. Maybe 4,000 of us lived on that station. Sethari mostly, like me. A few Korun engineers who kept to themselves. Some Drenic families who ran the food halls. We weren't soldiers. We weren't anybody. We were workers, and we were tired, and most nights the loudest sound on the whole station was the hum of the air recyclers and somebody's child crying 2 compartments over. I want you to hold on to that. How small we were. Because what happened to us was big, and the bigness only makes sense if you understand how very, very small we felt first. It started with weather, of all things. There's a kind of storm that builds in the upper bands of a gas giant, lightning the size of cities. We were used to it. The station shields handled it. But that week the storm came in heavier than the old hands had ever seen, and the long-range sensors started getting cluttered with static. I remember my supervisor, a stout old Sethari named Barak, leaning over my station and squinting at the noise on my screen. "You see that?" he said. "It's just the storm," I told him. "No," he tapped the glass, "behind the storm. There was a shape behind the static, faint, coming in slow. I cleaned up the signal as best I could, and we both stared at it, and neither of us said anything for a long moment. It was a ship we didn't recognize. The hull profile didn't match anything in the Concord registry. No friendly transponder, no hails, just a dark wedge sliding in from the deep black, using the storm to hide its approach." Barak straightened up slowly. His skin had gone pale at the throat, the way ours does when we're scared. "Log it," he said, "and get Director Haas." Director Haas arrived in her sleep robe, which tells you how serious it was, because Haas never let anyone see her less than perfect. She watched the shape for a while, then she asked the question that changed everything. "Is it Vorth?" The room went very quiet. The Vorth, I should explain for those of you who don't know your history, the Vorth Hegemony was an old enemy of the conquered, insectal, cold. They didn't conquer worlds so much as harvest them, strip them down, take everything, leave nothing alive. We'd had peace with them for a generation, an uneasy peace, the kind where everyone keeps a knife under the table and smiles. If that ship was Vorth, this far inside our border, then the peace was over. And a mining outpost like Tessom Drift was exactly the kind of soft, undefended thing they liked to swallow first. "Open a channel," Haas said. "All standard frequencies. Tell them they're in conquered space. Tell them to identify." I did it. My hands were shaking, but I did it. The reply came 30 seconds later. It wasn't words. It was a sound, a long, clicking, layered drone that made my teeth ache and the lights flicker. Every Sethari in that room knew that sound from the old war recordings our grandparents had made us listen to. It was Vorth. And then the shape on my screen split into 9 smaller shapes, and the 9 shapes began to spread out around us, like fingers closing into a fist. Haas didn't panic, I'll give her that. She'd been through the old war as a child. She knew what was coming. "Send the distress signal," she said. "Full Concord protocol. Our position, our population, the threat. Loop it, don't stop. To who? Borek asked. Nearest conquered fleet is 6 days out. 6 days, Director. They'll be done with us in an hour. I know, her voice was flat. Send it anyway. Maybe someone closer hears. So I sent it, over and over. This is Tessom Drift. We are under attack by Vorth forces. 4,000 civilians, requesting immediate assistance. Anyone, please. I sent that signal into the dark 100 times. I stopped expecting an answer somewhere around the 40th. That was my mistake, because someone was listening, just not anyone we expected. The first Vorth ship hit our outer shields about an hour later. I'd never been in a battle. None of us had. The whole station shook like a struck bell, and a girl 2 stations down from me started screaming, and Borek put his hand on my shoulder so hard it left a bruise I'd find the next day. The shields held, for a while. Then they started to fail, section by section, and we got the order to move people to the deep tunnels. The radium shafts ran a kilometer into solid rock. If anything could survive what was coming, it was down there. I remember the corridors, the crush of bodies, a Drenic mother holding 2 children to her chest, her mouth moving in a prayer to gods I didn't share. The emergency lights painting everyone red. The sound of the hull groaning above us as the Vorth ground us down. And under all of it, in my earpiece, the open distress channel I'd never shut off. That's how I heard it. A new voice, on a conquered emergency frequency. Speaking accented but clear standard, calm as anything, like a man asking what time it was. Tessom Drift, Tessom Drift. This is the vessel Hidalgo. We received your distress signal. We are inbound, hold on. I froze in the corridor. People shoved past me. I keyed the channel. Hidalgo, Hidalgo, this is Tessom Drift Relay. Identify your affiliation. Identify your fleet. A pause, and I swear I could hear something like a tired smile in the man's voice when he answered. We're human. Human. I want you to understand what that word meant to me back then in that moment. Almost nothing. Humans were a young species, barely off their homeworld a few generations. They'd petitioned to join the conquered and been politely ignored, the way you ignore a child tugging your sleeve at an important dinner. We knew they fought among themselves. We knew they were aggressive, that the elder species had quietly agreed to keep them at arm's length until they grew out of it. We did not know what they were. None of us did, not yet. Hidalgo, I said, be advised. Hostile force is 9 Vorth warships. 9. How many vessels are in your group? Another pause. 1, the man said. 1 ship against 9 Vorth. I almost laughed. It would have been the worst kind of laugh, the kind that turns into something else. I keyed the channel again to tell them to turn around, to save themselves, that there was nothing they could do. And then Borek grabbed my arm and pointed at the nearest viewport, and the words died in my throat. The Vorth had been so busy taking us apart that they hadn't watched their own backs. The human ship came in out of the storm exactly the way the Vorth had, using the lightning, using the noise, a shadow inside a shadow. But where the Vorth had crept, the humans did not creep. The Hidalgo came in burning. I don't mean it was on fire. I mean it came in at a speed that made my sensors scream, engines wide open, hull glowing from the heat of its own descent, aimed straight into the middle of the Vorth formation like it had a personal grudge against physics. It should have been suicide. 9-1. The Vorth turned to face it, and every gun they had lit up at once, and for a moment the whole sky around the Hidalgo turned white with fire. I thought it was over. I thought they were gone. Then the white cleared, and the Hidalgo was still there, twisting through the fire like it was dancing, and its own guns opened up. Here's the thing nobody had told us about humans. We'd been fighting wars in the conquered for 10,000 years. We'd gotten good at it. Good in the way that old, careful, comfortable people are good at things. Our doctrine was elegant. We maneuvered at safe distances. We exchanged fire by ancient rules everyone understood. War, for the elder species, had become almost polite, a negotiation conducted with weapons. Humans had not been doing it for 10,000 years. Humans had been doing it for a few thousand, on one small violent planet, against nothing but each other. And they had spent every single one of those years getting better at it as fast as they possibly could, because the only thing humans had ever fought was the deadliest enemy they would ever know. Other humans. The Vorth fought by the old rules. They expected the Hidalgo to keep its distance, to trade volleys, to behave. The Hidalgo did not behave. It closed the distance. It got in among them, so close that the Vorth couldn't fire without risking hitting each other. It picked the nearest warship and it didn't disable it, didn't cripple it, didn't follow any rule of restraint I had ever been taught. It tore that ship open from end to end and kept moving before the wreckage had finished blooming. I watched a single human vessel turn 9 warships into a panicked, colliding mess in under 4 minutes. I watched the most feared name in my grandparents' nightmares break and run. And the whole time, that calm voice kept talking in my ear. "Tessom Drift, you still with me down there?" I couldn't answer. I was crying. I'm not ashamed to say it. When it was over, 6 of the 9 Vorth ships were debris. 2 had fled into the dark. The last one had surrendered, which I'm told no Vorth warship had done in 400 years. The Hidalgo drifted in the silence afterward, scarred and venting atmosphere but alive. 1 ship, still there. Director Haas took the channel from me, with hands that weren't quite steady. "Hidalgo," she said, "this is Director Haas of Tessom Drift. We don't have words. You saved 4,000 lives. We will repay this. The conquered will repay this. Please, identify yourselves fully. Who are you? What fleet do we thank?" The pause this time was longer. "Ma'am," the human captain said at last, "I'm Captain Elen Marquez. The Hidalgo's a Corvette, a small one. We were the closest thing that could move when your call came in." "A Corvette," Haas repeated. "1 Corvette did this." "Yes, ma'am." "Then I must know," Haas said, and her voice cracked on it. "If a single small ship of your kind can do this, what is your fleet? What is the rest of you? What have we been ignoring at our door all these years?" And Captain Marquez was quiet for a moment. When she answered, there was something in her voice I didn't have a word for then. I have one now. It was sorrow. "Director," she said softly, "the rest of us is why I'm asking you to brace yourselves, because I already sent word home that you were under attack, and the fleet doesn't move slow once it starts moving." I didn't understand what she meant. I understood, a little 6 hours later when the long-range sensors lit up again. Not with a storm this time, not with 9 ships, but with a wall. A wall of contacts crossing into conquered space. Hundreds of them, then thousands, burning in fast and hot from a direction we'd never bothered to watch, because what was out there but a young, ignored little species we'd told to wait its turn. Barak stared at the sensor board with his mouth open. "That's Vale, that can't be right. The numbers can't be right." But they were right. Humanity had heard one desperate SOS from a worker outpost it owed nothing, a place full of people who had never given it the time of day, and humanity had answered with everything it had. The most feared fleet in the galaxy was coming, and it hadn't come to conquer us. It had come because we'd asked for help. Now here's the part of the story I think about most, not the battle. The battle was loud and fast and over before my heart had time to slow down. It's what came after that I still dream about. The waiting. We had 6 hours between Captain Marquez's warning and the moment the human fleet crossed into our space. 6 hours of watching that wall of contacts grow on the sensor board, one new light at a time, until the screen looked less like a tactical display and more like somebody had spilled stars across it. I want to tell you we spent those 6 hours being grateful. We didn't. We spent them being afraid. Because here's a thing nobody likes to admit. When something saves you, the first feeling is relief. The second feeling, the one that comes a heartbeat later when you've had time to think, is what does it want? Director Haas said it out loud in the command room, with only a few of us there to hear it. Nothing comes for free, she said, watching the lights. Not in this galaxy. Whatever they ask of us for this, we'll have to pay it. Barak rubbed his jaw. Maybe they'll take the station, the radium. Maybe they'll take the whole moon as a forward base. We're inside conquered territory, Director, if they wanted a foothold. Then they couldn't have picked a better excuse, Haas finished. Save the helpless, demand the rent. I remember thinking she was probably right. That was how the galaxy worked. That was how it had always worked. The strong helped the weak, and then the weak belonged to them. Every history lesson I'd ever sat through said so. I keyed the open channel anyway. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to hear that calm human voice again, to remind myself it had been real. Hidalgo, I said quietly, this is the relay tech, Vale from before. A short pause, then, I remember you, Vale. You stopped breathing on the channel for about 4 minutes there, had me worried. I almost smiled. Captain, the fleet that's coming, what's going to happen to us? And she said something I didn't expect. They're going to fix your shields, patch your hull, check your wounded, and then, if you want, they're going to leave. That's it. That's it. Why? The word came out before I could stop it. Why would you do that? You don't know us. We're nothing to you. We never even, the conquered, ignored your people for generations. We let them. We watched them shut the door in your face and we said nothing. Why would you come all this way for people like us? The pause stretched so long, I thought I'd lost the channel. When Marquez answered, her voice was different, lower, like she'd set down something she'd been carrying. Vale, can I tell you something about us? About humans? Please. We came up alone. You know that part. The galaxy found us late and decided we were too rough, too young, too dangerous, and it left us to sort ourselves out on our own little world. And we did. We fought each other for thousands of years. We did terrible things to each other, things I won't put on an open channel. We almost didn't make it. She paused. But somewhere in all that fighting we learned one thing, the only thing maybe that ever made us worth anything. We learned what it feels like to send out a cry for help and have no one come. We've all felt it, every single one of us somewhere down the line. The ship going under with the radio still calling. The village waiting for help that turned back. We carry it in our bones, that feeling. The worst feeling there is. Another pause. So when we finally clawed our way out into the dark and got ships of our own, we made a promise. Not a law, a promise. That as long as humans had a fleet that could move, no cry for help in our reach would ever go unanswered again. Not for friends, not for allies, for anyone. Because we know what the silence on the other end feels like, and we decided no one else was going to feel it if we could help it. I didn't say anything, I couldn't. That's the whole secret, Vale, she said gently. That's the terrible feared human fleet your grandparents would have whispered about. It's not that we love war, we hate it. We're just very, very good at it, and we made a promise about what to point it at. You called for help. We came. There's nothing else to it. There's no bill at the end. The fleet arrived an hour later. I've tried to describe it to people since, and I always fail, so let me just tell you what I saw and you can build the rest yourself. They didn't come in burning the way the Hidalgo had. They came in slow, deliberate, ship after ship after ship dropping out of the dark in formation until the gas giant we orbited was half hidden behind hulls. Big ones, carriers like floating cities, escorts bristling with guns that were, every one of them, pointed outward away from us, toward the dark the Vorth had fled into. That detail, the guns pointed away. I noticed it and I started crying again, and this time I understood why. You don't point your guns away from someone you've come to take. The lead ship hailed us, not Marquez this time, an older human voice, rougher with the weight of authority in it. Tessom Drift, this is Admiral Sukarno aboard the carrier Bondo. We are responding to your distress call. We are not here to occupy, claim, or negotiate. We are here to help, and then we are here to leave. With your permission, Director, I'd like to send down medical teams and engineering crews. We've got people who can fix that hull of yours before it kills you. May we come aboard? Has stood very still. I watched her face. I watched her wait for the catch, the hidden price, the trap. It didn't come. Admiral, she said finally, and her voice was raw. You may come aboard, and God's help me, welcome to Tessom Drift. What happened over the next 3 days, I will remember until the day I die. They came aboard in their hundreds. Humans. Up close they were strange-looking, too tall, too much expression in those flat faces, always touching each other on the shoulders and the arms in a way that unsettled us at first until we understood it was kindness. They worked, that's the thing that stays with me. They didn't pose, they didn't make speeches, they rolled up their sleeves and they worked. Their engineers crawled into our broken hull sections alongside our Korun crews and patched holes that should have taken us weeks, in hours. Their medics set up in our food halls and treated everyone. Sethari, Drennick, Korun, didn't matter, didn't ask. Just who's hurt, bring them here. I watched a human medic, a young woman with her hair tied back, spend 2 hours saving a Drennick child who'd been crushed in the evacuation. When the child finally cried, that thin, furious, alive sound, the medic sat down right there on the floor and put her head in her hands and shook, and one of her own crewmates knelt and held her. They cared, not in a distant, official way. They cared down in their bones about 4,000 strangers they'd never met and owed nothing. I found Captain Marquez on the second day. She was smaller than I'd imagined, with a long scar down one forearm and tired eyes, sitting alone in a corner of the food hall with a cup of our bitter station tea, which I'm certain tasted terrible to her. But she drank it anyway because Borek had given it to her, and she didn't want to be rude. I sat down across from her. For a moment neither of us spoke. You came in one ship, I said finally. Against 9. You knew the fleet was hours behind you. You could have waited, hung back, stayed safe. Why didn't you? She turned the cup in her hands. Because your shields were failing, she said simply. I did the math on the way in. You had maybe 90 minutes before the Vorth broke through to the tunnels. The fleet was 6 hours out. She shrugged, a small human motion. 90 minutes is less than 6 hours, Vale. So I went in with what I had. That's all that ever is. You go in with what you have when you have it, because the people on the other end of that signal can't tell the difference between we're coming and we came too late. Only one of those keeps them alive. You could have died. Yes. For us. She looked at me then, really looked, and there was something fierce under the tiredness. Vale, she said. Every name on my crew roster volunteered the second your signal came through. Everyone. We didn't draw lots. We didn't argue. There was a call for help and there were people who could answer it, and that's, she stopped, searching for it. That's not bravery where I'm from. That's just the floor. That's the least of what a person owes another person. We'd be ashamed to call it anything else. I didn't have words for that. I'm not sure my people had words for that. We had words for duty, and for honor, and for debt. We did not have a word for a thing you did simply because someone needed it and you could. I think that was the day I understood why the elder species were so afraid of humans. It wasn't the guns. It wasn't the speed or the fury or the way they fought like the rules didn't apply. It was that they'd taken the most dangerous thing in the universe, the willingness to die, and pointed it at kindness. And there is no defense in all the galaxy against people like that. You cannot fight them because they'll die to save you. You cannot buy them because they came for free. You cannot understand them because their whole strength comes from a wound the rest of us were too comfortable to ever earn. On the third day, they got ready to leave. Our hull was whole. Our wounded were stable. The surrendered Vorth ship had been handed over to a proper conquered patrol that finally showed up nearly a week late, looking deeply embarrassed about it. Before they went, Admiral Sukarno came down to the station himself. Old Gray walked with a slight limp. He found Director Haas in the command room, and the two of them stood looking at each other, the leader of 4,000 frightened workers and the commander of the most feared fleet in the dark. Admiral Haas said, "I have to ask one more time. There must be something we can give. The conquered will want to repay this properly, formally, and I personally cannot let you leave thinking we feel nothing. Name it, anything in our power." Sukarno was quiet for a while. "There is one thing," he said at last. I saw Haas brace. Here it was, finally. "When the day comes," Sukarno said slowly, "and it will come when some other little station on the edge of nowhere sends out a signal into the dark and they're afraid and they think no one is listening," he looked at her. "I'd like to think that you'll be the one who answers, not because anyone made you, just because you remember what it felt like the night you weren't sure anyone would come. Pass it on, Director. That's the only payment we've ever wanted. Pass it on." And then he saluted her, saluted us. A moon full of nobody miners the galaxy had never bothered to learn the name of, turned, and went back to his ship. I watched the human fleet leave from the same viewport where I'd first seen the Vorth come. They went the way they'd come, slow and deliberate, ship after ship folding back into the dark, until only the Hidalgo was left. Marquez's voice came over the channel one last time, just for me, I think. "Take care of each other, Tessom Drift. That's the whole job, that's all of it." Then she was gone too, and the sky was just the sky again, bruised and quiet, and the only sound on the whole station was the hum of the air recyclers, and somewhere 2 compartments over, a Drenic child, the one the medic had saved, laughing. That was 40 years ago. I'm not a junior relay technician anymore. I run my own station now, further out even than Tessom Drift, on the ragged edge of everything. It's small. It's cold. Nobody's heard of it. The people here are tired and they're nobody, and most nights the loudest sound is the air recyclers and somebody's child crying. I keep one channel open at all times, always, even when the regulations say I don't have to, even when it costs me power I can't spare. Because 3 years ago, a signal came in over that channel. A little freighter, engines dead, drifting toward a star, with 11 souls aboard and no one close enough to matter. No one but us. My crew didn't draw lots. They didn't argue. There was a call for help and there were people who could answer it, and we went in with what we had when we had it, because the people on the other end of a signal can't tell the difference between we're coming and we came too late. We got all 11. And when their captain found me afterward, shaking, asking what she owed, what the price was, why strangers would risk everything for people they'd never met, I sat down across from her with 2 cups of bad station tea, and I told her about a night 40 years ago, and a single human ship that came in burning out of a storm. And at the end, I told her the only thing there was to tell. I told her to pass it on. Because that's the truth. The galaxy was too old and too comfortable to remember, and a young, scarred, dangerous little species had to come out of the dark to teach us. The most feared fleet in all the stars was never the one with the most guns. It was the one that always came when you called. And that's the complete story, both parts. A few notes for you as the creator. The 2 parts together land in a solid range for a long-form narration video, with the structure you asked for: hook, setup, rising tension, the climax battle, the human fleet's arrival, resolution, and a memorable closing line that ties the whole pass-it-on theme together. I kept everything self-contained and original. Narrator Vale, the mining moon Tessom Drift, the Vorth enemy Captain Marquez, and Admiral Sukarno. When you send your next title, I'll build a brand new world, cast, conflict, and emotional core with 0 overlap. No repeated names, settings, or beats. Want me to tighten the packing anywhere? Adjust the tone, more cinematic, more grounded, more emotional? Or add a short spoken-style intro hook you can read over the opening visuals.